So here we are, it's 2022, January 12th, 2022, and this is the ROI group. We have about 500 members in total, but not everybody can show up, the second Wednesday of each month at noon Eastern time to watch. So many of them will watch the recorded version. And I usually do a short introduction, sometimes a little longer than it should be probably. But after that, we have two fantastic guests. I'm really, really pleased, and I'm going to introduce them in a moment. But right now, I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to just do a little bit of an introduction as I promised. And again, welcome to the ROI group. We only have 10 meetups a year, and they last only 90 minutes. We do start on time and end on time. We don't meet in August, as you remember, because of holidays, and we don't meet in December because of Christmas and holidays. So there you go. And the purpose of the group, the reason it was started, was we wanted to find better ways to take care of ourselves and our families for 3 generations, not just for yourself and your immediate family, but for your children and your grandchildren, by investing, building, and owning high-performing real estate portfolios, and perhaps some kind of what I call a PB4L, personal business for life. So that's the purpose of the group. It's a learning group. That is what we're here to do, to teach each other better ways to improve our personal situations. And relying on government is probably not going to work for most people. The average Canada pension plan payout is around $690 a month. That's very hard to live on $690. US Social Security is a little better, about $1,230, I think $1,230 US dollars a month. But whether it's $600 or $700 or $1,200, it's not easy to live on that kind of money. So we want to find better ways to take care of ourselves and our families. And at least for myself, and probably everybody who's part of the ROI group, the only thing that has worked for me is real estate investing and owning a personal business for life. My personal business for life, as you know, is doing some coaching. I like doing that. And the other things that work for me are real estate. I'm a horrible investor in things like stock market, bonds, mutual funds, RRSPs, tax-free savings accounts, all of that stuff. I don't invest in crypto because I don't really understand it. And when I read about 600 million and $1 billion thefts of cryptocurrency, I'm a little dubious, but that's just me speaking personally. That's not any kind of advice. So really all I know is real estate. And I'm Bruce Firestone. I think you all know me. I'm an engineer from McGill University in Montreal, and then I did an engineering science degree at the University of New South Wales in Australia, and my PhD in urban economics at the Australian National University in Canberra. I was on track to be a professor until my dad came down to Australia to visit me and my wife, and we only had one son at that time. And he said, come back to Ottawa and help me out. My business isn't doing very well. And that was more than 30 years ago. So here I am, and this is what I do now. You all know how to get a hold of me, but at any time, if you need something from me, if I can help in any way, the best way to reach me is bruce@brucemfirestone.com. So email me, I'm on that pretty much all the time. I want to thank our sponsors. We have 2 sponsors. And by the way, if anybody else wants to sponsor, it's not expensive. You can help out. I'm always welcome, Chris, if you wanted to help out, that would be good. Or anybody else wanted to sponsor, it just helps pay some of the costs of running the group. One of our sponsors is Matt Slobodian. He is Senior Director of Mortgage Origination for Canada ICI. And what really he's really, really well known for, he's probably the Canada's top leading expert in the origination of CMHC financing for multifamily rental assets in Canada. It's incredible. I mean, they get close to 100% loan to value. Interest rates are so low that for anybody who remembers the 1980s, like I do, and having 13% mortgages, it seems like free money to me. So if anybody's interested, in multifamily, really, it's important, I think, to talk to Matt Slobodian, and I'm grateful for his support. The other sponsor that we have, I said we have 2, is my good friend, really truly a caring and sharing person by the name of Steve Shepard. He's also an attorney. He's a lawyer. He's a real estate lawyer. He's one of the best. I call him a young lawyer. He's kind of now youngish because I've known him for a long time. And he's been a tremendous help to me and thousands of other people. He's what I call a deal making lawyer. You know, there's deal breaking ones. Michael, I saw you're on the call, Michael Rouge. You know what deal breaking lawyers are like. Well, Steve is not that guy. He's a deal maker. A couple of things, just before I introduce our first guest, a couple of things I do at the end of each year that I thought I'd mention to you guys. At the end of each year, you know, around Christmas time, between Christmas and New Year's, or the start of each year, I ask myself, well, what's next for Prof. Bruce? I don't just kind of randomly walk through my year. You know, I ask what's next. And I also get a lot of questions from people I coach, you know, what's next for them? And I say, well, think what new direction you're going to go in, but do something that has constraints on it. Don't just do something because it randomly occurred to you. So what are those constraints? I encourage people to do businesses, create businesses that are simple. I think complexity is the enemy of success. I want you to do something that you control, that you have control over, rather than just working for somebody else. Something that's sustainable. And I don't just mean environmentally sustainable. I mean both environmentally sustainable and economically sustainable. Because in my opinion, nothing is environmentally sustainable unless it's also economically sustainable. You'll have to trust me on that one. I want it to be profitable. Profit is not a dirty word. I want it to be profitable. It has to be doable and feasible, obviously. And you want to have some skills that apply, and you want to be passionate about it because you have to focus on it for a long time. So those are some of the things, some of the constraints I would put on myself as well. And then I ask these questions. These are really simple things, I recognize, but I think they're pretty useful. Is there something I'm doing I should stop doing? Is there something I'm not doing that I should be doing? And is there something I'm doing I should do more of? And I look at the things that I'm doing every single year. I probably should do it more than once a year, but I do it once a year between Christmas and New Year's. And I ask myself these three questions. So when I did it this year, I answered to number 3 above, is there something else I should be doing? Is I'd like to do a little bit more teaching this year. I would. I like teaching. It isn't really a big winner for me in terms of, you know, paying my bills. You know, teaching is really something I think I do for the love of it. I do charge something for the courses, but not very much. So starting this Saturday, if you're interested, I still have a few more spaces. I'm going to do a new course. This Saturday starts January 15th at noon Eastern time. And it goes for 2 hours, and it's only 3 Saturdays. So it'll be the 15th of January, the 22nd, and the 29th, at 2 hours in 3 Saturdays. It's called Fix It: How to Earn $10,000 a month or more from your own simple to create high-performing real estate portfolio without breaking a sweat. And there is an investment of $297, but that includes tax. And if you want to sign up, or friends of yours you think could benefit from it, they're more than welcome to join us. And you have to go to my new website. It's called burningrocksolutions.com. And if you can't remember Burning Rock, just think of my last name, Firestone, Burning Rock. So burningrocksolutions.com/fixit. And I'm going to go through some really great new business models, because I learn almost as much from the people I coach as they do from me. So it's how to buy in a hot market, what to buy, how to boost your cap rate through something I call animation, how to finance it properly. And I'll have a bunch of new business models to go over for you. So Chris, I'm almost ready to introduce you, but not quite yet. One of the things I've challenged this group to do, and many others that I coach, is to challenge the status quo, right? And some of you know that I'm writing a new learning outcome novel called Twilight Zoned. Not Twilight Zone, I get sued for that. It's called Twilight Zone, because many of you who followed me over the years know I'm not a particularly big fan of zoning bylaws, ordinances, and very, very complicated provincial, state, county, township, town, city bylaws, ordinances, and other rules. It is holding back our national and international economy to a very significant degree. I just wanted to give you an example. I think some of you know I've converted one of my properties. This is a barn I own. I call it the barn dominium. I converted it into 10 little workshops, and I've got all kinds of people who are there. And I wanted to build a bunkie right next to it. You can see this little bunkie here. And I think Dustin is on the call. Dustin Poole is a wonderful young architectural technologist. He designed this. He did a wonderful plan for me. It's a 542 square foot, 1-bedroom bunkie that I was going to put right next to my barn, so somebody could live in the little bunkie and work in one of the workshops, because that live work condition is very, very, very popular. And so anyway, Dustin helped me, and we applied for a building permit from the city of Ottawa. And oh yeah, here it is. And the city came back to us and said, oh yeah, thanks for the building permit, but by the way, you have to do a full site plan application. If you don't know what that means, it means studies and reports and fees of about $121,000. Think about that. For a bunkie, that probably won't cost much more than that. $121,000 in studies, which is horrible, and probably a 2-year delay. So we said, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to spend $121,000. And the reason for that, it isn't just the money and the delay, it's that I'm a stubborn SOB. And I don't think it's right. You know, you hear premiers and governors and presidents and prime ministers and all kinds of planners and politicians and economists talk about affordable housing. Every word out of their mouth, excuse my language, is bullshit. To governments today, affordable housing, it means if I give somebody who's a brilliant developer like Christian $100 million of free money, maybe he could build some apartments that he could rent for a little bit less. But that's what they mean by affordable housing. That's not affordable housing. And you'll see here on the right-hand side of my screen, a wartime house. You see these all over Canada. And I wanted to tell you that what I'm challenging you to do, and I'm challenging myself to do, is not to take the status quo and accept it. And I did tell the planners and the traffic engineers and the civil engineers who were on the pre-consultation with me that we would not be doing these studies. And that we are failing our young people. You know, the average cost of a house in Toronto, I don't know what it is, but it's off the charts. And even in a smaller center like Ottawa, it's very expensive, and we're failing our children. And the reason I put this wartime house here is that my father, Professor O.J. Firestone, long since passed away, he was tasked at the end of the Second World War to set up something called Central Mortgage and Housing Corporation, which is now Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. And their job was to build 350,000 of these $6,000 homes. That home there cost $6,000, so that our wartime veterans who defended Canada and protected our freedoms would have a place to live. And the fact that we cannot provide enough affordable rental accommodation and enough affordable housing is a travesty. And if my dad, the late Minister C.D. Howe, and others were alive today, they would go right across Canada and kick Mr. Trudeau, our Prime Minister, and every minister, every premier, every state governor, kick them in the pants and say, you are failing our young people, and I believe that. So what I did instead was I am going to apply to the city of Ottawa for an exemption. There is a possibility in the bylaws that the city has to ask for exemptions. There has been one exemption from site plan granted by the general manager in the last 5 years, only one. I'm hoping this will be the second one. But when I talked to the general manager, I asked him, I said, look, I'm asking for myself and my family, for sure. I understand that. But I'm also going to tell you that what I want is I want a process so that if people can demonstrate, whether it's Paul Murphy on the call, or Christian, or Terry, or anybody else on the call, if we can demonstrate that we have, you know, we're creating a community benefit, we can be exempted from these onerous and unfair and really, frankly, unnecessary studies. And what I suggested to the general manager is that the Land Division Committee, or the Committee of Adjustment, which is a committee of our peers, be tasked with this rather than him, our general manager. There can't be 500 or 1,000 people asking the GM for an exemption. It has to be a process. So you would go in front of the Land Division Committee, the Committee of Adjustment, you would describe the community benefit, and you would ask for exemption from unfair and unneeded studies. That's the plan. Whether I get there or not, I don't know, but I'm quite a determined individual, so I'm not betting against myself on this one. and I hope you guys would support me in this. Okay, enough of my politics and politicking now. It is my unbelievable pleasure. I can't tell you how excited I am to have Chris Corcoran here today. I've been trying to get him on the ROI group for quite some time, but he's such a busy man and runs such a wonderful, successful business that we're really, really fortunate that I could get him here today. So you can see this is Chris. He is the co-founder of Whispering Springs Wilderness Retreat, Ontario's #1 glamping destination. That's an incredible thing. And at least 20 people, once I announced that Chris was coming on, wrote to me and said, oh, I've been to Whispering Springs, and every single one of them, I'm not just saying it because Chris is on the call with us, every single one of them said it was a fantastic, unbelievable experience. He's got an interesting background. He's a certified nutritional practitioner and live blood analyst. Don't ask me what that is. And he's done all kinds of really cool stuff. I mean, which I think is neat, especially when he's running something as really exotic and exciting as Whispering Springs. And I asked him for a funny story, and he told me that his mom bought him a wrong-handed baseball glove when he was 4. And to this day, he throws with his wrong hand. He's terrible at baseball. So there you go. That's Chris in a nutshell. I probably didn't do you very much justice there, but Chris, I'm going to switch slide decks now, and I'm going to it's over to you.
Okay. Can you hear me all right?
Perfect.
Okay, terrific. Well, I just want to say hi to everyone that's on the call. Thank you, Bruce, for bringing me on. It's an honor to be involved in this. And I'm sorry it has taken so long to make this happen, but we're doing it now, and that's all that matters. So so I'll start off, just our company name is Whispering Springs. We are going into our 6th year of business right now. And it's been a family affair from the get-go. I've been really fortunate to have 2 parents that are entrepreneurs. They were involved in starting up St. Anne's Spa, which is a really successful, one of Canada's most successful spas, which is also located in the Grafton area. I've kind of worked with them and been a part of this whole process to bring this business to life. So if you want to go to the next slide there, Bruce. So I'll just start off with a quick definition of what glamping kind of means to me. Glamping is a combination of adding luxury or glamour to a camping experience. The term has grown in popularity over recent years, and there has been an explosion in this new and emerging industry, from large safari tents with soaker bathtubs to unique tree forts secluded in the wilderness. Glamping encompasses a wide range of unique and new experiences. So below, you can see several pictures from our park. The whole idea fell upon us about 6 years ago when we saw just a small little advertisement in someone's backyard saying to come and stay for a glamping experience. And it was literally just a really nice tent set up in a parking lot, basically. And we had this property that we've had for about 20 years now. So to touch on the joys of working with the government, we bought this property for its natural water source. It's got a really premier water source on it. And we went through the whole permit and application process to get the water permit issued. And within 1 day of having the water permit, the government put out a moratorium basically saying no one can take from new water sources. So that really crushed that business idea. And for the 20 years following that, the property, for lack of better words, was collecting dust. So when we came across this idea of glamping, it got us really excited because instead of building, a multi-million-dollar spa, which involves a lot of upfront construction cost, we saw this as a great opportunity because it was so simple. All you really had to do was build a platform, buy a tent, and do a little bit of landscaping and get your hands dirty. And that's essentially what we did. So if you want to go to the next slide. Okay, so just for those of you who don't know, we're located at 141 Mercer Lane in Grafton. which is about an hour and a half east of Toronto. We've got about 150 acres of wilderness surrounding the property. So it's a really beautiful location, and something that's really unique about it is we're just literally 5 minutes north of the 401. So we're able to pull from a really big demographic of people. You know, we've got everyone in Toronto, we've got Kingston. And when you come to the park, one of its characteristics is you can't see any neighboring properties. We're kind of built out in a valley. So it's completely forested around us. So even though you're just 5 minutes north of the 401, you really feel like you've traveled to Northern Ontario. And that's kind of been a blessing for us, because otherwise I don't think we would have been able to create such a unique experience and getaway. And I'd say about 90 to 95% of our clientele actually comes from the Greater Toronto area. Now more than ever, with the kind of the state of the world, people have been looking to escape their day-to-day lives. And since travel hasn't been a viable option for many people, something that has really hindered a lot of businesses has actually kind of pushed ours to excel even further, just because we've kind of gained access to that market of people that really just need a little bit of a break from their everyday lives. So that the pond that you see in that picture, it's all natural spring fed. So it adds quite a bit of uniqueness to the property. You can, literally walk around and actually see where the water is percolating up through the ground. So that's also helped us quite a bit as well, because our local township has been pretty supportive of this business model from the get-go. I think with the world we're in, anyone that can do something that preserves nature a little bit, or showcases it, is going to have a leg up. There's definitely challenges associated with building, close to a water source, but for the most part, we haven't had much resistance towards this idea, just because it has been something that I think everyone feels people need more of. Next slide. So just to give you a little bit of history, as I mentioned, this is a small family business. There's really just four of us, kind of initially. It's my two parents and my sister, who's kind of been the head of marketing and dealing with the municipality. I've been involved in the entire construction process, building all the tents, the roadways, the swimming pool. So it's been a great experience for me to firsthand learn all of these skills, but to also just see what you're capable of when you have good guidance and direction. It's kind of been like we've been bringing a large painting to life over the years.
Oh, so that's a beautiful statement. I love that, Chris.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce. So we started Whispering Springs in terms of opening up to the public in 2017. Now, prior to that, there was about a 3 to 4 year buildup to even get to that stage. This 150 acres that we built on at one point was completely landlocked. So prior to even being able to pursue the idea, what we needed to do was we needed to build about a 1 kilometer road to gain access. Now, fortunately, we did this at a time where there's a big, where the township was giving severances away very freely. So by building that road, we opened up about 10 parcels of land that we were able to sever. And then from severing and selling those parcels, we were able to use that income to roll directly into the construction of the park. So initially, since glamping was such a kind of a novel idea and in its infancy, there wasn't really any parks that we could look around to see, how successful an idea like this would be. So we just kind of made the decision to start off by putting up 4 units. So our initial 4 units were the one that you're seeing in that picture, that was actually the first unit that we built. And it's what you call a safari tent. And we actually harvested the cedar logs to construct the frame, and then sourced from a company in Ontario for the tent. And after we built those first 4 tents, we started, really hammering it on the marketing front through Instagram, and trying to reach out to local journalists. And that first year was a pretty big success. We definitely didn't cover our costs of construction, obviously, but it was enough for us to see that this was a really special idea that we were pursuing. And the feedback that we were getting was quite remarkable.
Chris, can I ask you this question? Today, especially when you look at so many of the businesses being technology driven, people are saying that decisions should be entirely data driven, or mostly data driven. But I'm not sure. There wasn't really a lot of data that you could find on glamping, and there wasn't a lot, as you mentioned, there weren't a lot of other examples of it. So what convinced you to do it? Because it probably wasn't data.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't data. There wasn't really any data. The best data maybe that what would have been available was just seeing the success that people were having on Airbnb.
Right.
And it seemed to all of us that unique experiences were something that, don't really, they always seem to do well, at least in Ontario. So the big thing that kind of urged us to move forward with it was kind of the fact that we were in the modular home business for several years before, and that wasn't working out too well. It was kind of still in the infancy of that business. So we did what we could there, but we saw that it wasn't really a viable business to pursue long term. So it was really kind of a shot in the dark. Partly, we knew we had the property to work with, and that wasn't really doing us any good just sitting there. So we kind of just thought, maybe there's a shot that if we build really nice tents and we just do a few of them, that first year would really be all the data collection that we would need. Yeah, and that seemed to prove true. As you could see, the second year we put in another 6 tents, and then currently, as it stands, we're at about 21 units. Our resort designation allows for 25 units. So in this picture, what you can actually see is these are our 3 most recent units that we built. These are what we call tree tents. You can't really gain a good understanding of the height, but they sit anywhere from 12 to 15 feet off the ground. They're connected by suspension bridges. We've got a hot tub up there. And this has been kind of a dream for us this whole time. This is the one thing we really got excited about, but we knew it was, going to be quite a big endeavor. And getting around to it this past year was just amazing because it was so cool to see this come to life. So as it stands right now, Bruce touched on it, we're Ontario's #1 glamping destination. We're a seasonal business, so we're only open for about 150 days throughout the year, which has worked out just fine for us. We've really had to put our heads down and get dirty. So it's been nice to have that off time, but we've also needed a lot of time just to construct the units that we have. As of this past year, we've got over a 90% occupancy rate. We've got about the equivalent of a cruise ship that passes through our park each year, over about 5,000 guests a year.
Wow.
And weddings and elopements have really just skyrocketed for us in the past few years. So if you want to get married at Whispering Springs, you're looking typically at about a 1 to 2 year wait just because of availability.
That's incredible, Chris. I mean, it's just it's a home run, really. It is. Even if you're bad at baseball, it's a home run.
Thank you. That might be the only home run I've had in my life. So there we go. So if you want to move on to the next slide there, something we've taken great pride in over our whole, over our business career with Whispering Springs has been our reviews. We have nearly perfect reviews on TripAdvisor. We do have a perfect 5 stars. On Google, we're not far behind. I think we're a 4.8 or a 4.9. That's something we've taken extremely seriously. One thing that, a little side note, we kind of come from a bit of a Disney family. My mom, her father, my grandfather, he was actually in charge of Disney operations in Canada for over 20 some odd years. So we've always liked to think that we've had a bit of Disney magic in our blood, and we've tried to take that to every aspect of the park, whether it be the construction of the tents, the interior design, but first and foremost, at the heart of our business is trying to create a really magical experience for our guests. So with all of our employees, we've really trained hard just on how to give them that experience where they're not just checking into a campground, but they're about to embark on an adventure that's going to take them to the wilderness.
So you have quite a few employees, as I recall.
Yep. So we've got about, I think we're standing currently at about 10 to 12 full-time employees year round. But then we've got over 60 employees when the season opens. And that's just because of the laundry operation and maintenance and so forth.
Fantastic. I'm just, so excited to come. And, as I said, so many of my clients have been there, and some of them have been in your treetop glamping sites, which I think just opened in 2021.
Yep, that's correct. Yep. Yeah, I think Brad came out and visited us this year.
Brad was there. That's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's something that has just been great to share with people. I don't think there's anywhere in Canada, or I don't think there's even many glamping parks, even in North America, that have units quite like that. So that's where our mindset is. We're constantly just trying to think of ways that we can just have that extra leg up over the competition. What are the things that we can do that just create, an experience that's just a little bit above and beyond what other people are offering? So this next page, this is just our Instagram page. If you guys do want to see more pictures of Whispering Springs, I'd highly encourage you just to browse it. We've got close to about 40,000 followers now.
Wow.
As I said, my sister's really kind of been involved from the start at launching that marketing campaign, and she's just done such a fantastic job. A big part of it, we've invited a lot of social media influencers out to the park. And like clockwork, when you do that, the news is going to travel fast. We're kind of at the stage right now where we just don't even market anymore, just because we don't really have any more availability to take, to expand. With us approaching our maximum amount of units, we're kind of at full capacity. So we kind of have some other business ideas that I'll touch on at the very end of this. So on to the next slide there. Just to give you guys a little bit of a eagle-eyed view, this is what the park looks like from Google Maps. This is actually part of the site plan that we've had to do for the township. As you can see, the dotted lines, the yellow ones and orange, just kind of outline the water courses throughout the park. So we are very fortunate to work with a small, local township and in a rural area. We're in the Grafton area, which has a population of about 1,000 people. So I think that's really worked to our advantage, to be honest with you, simply because I don't think that there's as stringent rules and regulations as you might encounter when you get into those larger townships. So if you want to jump to the next slide, I'll touch on that. Oh, maybe you might be missing this slide here, Bruce. I'm wondering, maybe, did you get that? Just wondering if you might be on that previous version of the presentation there.
Just give me a second and I'll boot out of this one and I'll see, because I was trying to be careful to get the right slide deck, but I might not have. So I apologize. I'll stop sharing just for a moment, and if you can fill in the blanks while I find the right slide deck. I apologize. I might have. It's been a difficult week for me, as you can imagine. So I might have missed it. So just give me a second.
No problem whatsoever. Yeah. So I'll touch on the municipality. As I said, it is very small. So there's kind of a lot of people that have been at the township for 20 to 30 plus years. And it's initially the property was designated as agricultural. So we had to go through the process to change it and to get our resort designation. And that was about a 5-year process. So as Bruce touched on a little bit earlier, it is amazing how difficult some of these things can be. Getting our resort designation has been very difficult. And it's just something that kind of drags on and on sometimes, right? When you think you're getting close to the finish line, there's just all these other loopholes you have to jump through. We've easily spent over $50,000 in environmental studies, site plans, building permits. I'll get to a couple slides in a moment that just kind of show you our common area. Yep.
Chris, I did check. That slide deck that I'm showing was the second one you sent me. So I've just made you the co-host. Do you have your slide deck there?
Well, why don't you keep moving forward on yours? There was only a couple slides I added, so maybe that one just didn't pop up for one reason or another. Right. I'm just operating off of my phone here, so I won't be able to pull that up. Yeah,
but I did my best.
Yeah, I appreciate the efforts. Thank you. So this is just another aerial view. This kind of shows you where our accommodations are laid out throughout the property. What's unique about this is we offer just a lot of variety in terms of what people can come to the park for. On the north side of this slide, all of those tents, yeah, right there, they actually wrap around a horse pasture that we have. We've got several horses that are roaming through there all day, and those tents are actually built up on the ridge. So some of those front decks, they actually sit, probably close to about 15 to 18 feet off the ground. So when you come to the park, you really have a lot of options over what it is that you get to experience. Back to the municipality. If you want to jump to the next slide there, Bruce.
Just before we do that, Chris, you mentioned that you've got 4 more locations, I think. Here's 23, 24, and 25. I'm not sure where 21, oh, here's 21 and 22. So, yeah. So you've got 4 more, I guess, to do 22 here, 23, 24. I mean, don't spill the beans, but are there any exciting, like, new things you'll do for the last few units?
Well, I think we're going to take a little break from building this upcoming year. But yeah, you can definitely count on us doing something unique for those future accommodations.
You're going to give us a hint?
Well, there's been a few things that we've talked about, but I think I'll probably still have to keep the book closed on that just until we get a bit closer. I don't want to let anyone's hopes down if it's not quite up to their expectation. So one thing that back to the municipality, which is where it's really kind of been a godsend for us most. For our tents, they haven't actually required building permits. And it's because in our township, you don't need a building permit unless you actually have a roof over top of your structure. So one thing I'd encourage all of you guys to do, anyone who's kind of pursuing similar ideas, is if you can find the loopholes, sometimes in the building plans, that can make all the difference. So that's part of the reason why we're just a seasonal business, because the second we add roofs and try and become a winter business, then that means we need to get building permits for all of those tent platforms that we have. But that's just saved us a whole lot of money and a whole lot of time. So the only real structures that we've had to get the building permits for are a lot of the larger structures, like the pavilion that you're kind of seeing in that slide below. So as time has gone on, our business has really branched out. We started off as a general glamping business. And one morning, it was actually my mother who woke up, and she looked at my dad and she said, "Do you think you can build me a forest chapel?"
Yeah.
And within, I'd say about 1 to 2 weeks, we had a chapel built. At this point in time, we still didn't have any intention of getting into the wedding or the elopement business. But the second that people saw this really rustic chapel in the forest, then that just created an explosion for us. And that really kind of took off a whole new branch of our business that we never even really anticipated on. So we also do corporate retreats and events. We've done some events for Remy Martin, Burt's Bees, and a handful of other pretty reputable businesses. And that's always been really great from a marketing standpoint.
Wow.
As you can see in that picture, on the bottom left-hand side, that's what we call our watering hole. So that's basically our bar and reception area. We've got a communal fire pit to the right, and the pavilions that kind of wrap around where we hold the wedding receptions and dance floor. And I do see some questions popping up. You want me to try and tackle some of them?
Before you do that, my job is to look at the chat bar and also move the slides. So I'll keep my eye on it, Chris. But I have a question, then I'm going to. James has a question too. The question I have is, can you mention what the price points are? You know, if not for the weddings and everything else, but if you know, Brad Cartier and his group want to come, what kind of costs are they looking at?
Okay, well, in that case, why don't you jump to the next slide?
Oh, okay. No, forget my question then. So I'm going to go back. James is asking, if you look at your revenues, how much of it is sort of individuals or families coming, you know, couples coming to and just enjoying the glamping, and how much of it is corporate retreats, and how much of it is wedding? What do you know the percentages roughly?
Yeah, I could probably give you a guesstimate. I'd say weddings are probably about 70% of our revenues now.
Wow.
When you look at our calendar throughout the year, pretty much every weekend is booked up for weddings. And that's where it's given us a huge edge, because not only can we accommodate a wedding reception, but we can also give a place for everyone, or for at least most of their wedding guests to stay.
How many people can stay on the campus at one time?
We're around 60 people at this point in time. I'd say it all depends how many people are staying in some of the tents. But those are the three the three different types of accommodations that we have at the park. So on the lower end, we've got the boho bell tents, which sleep 2 people. We rent those out for about $200 a night. In the middle, the safari tents, this is kind of what we started with. And I think we've got about 12 of those units. They're about $375 a night. And then for the treetop tents, those ones are kind of a premium at $550.
That's fantastic. Fantastic. You know, it's only 150 days a year, but I'll tell you a very short story, Chris. I did a little bit of consulting for the Disney company. And when they were opening Disney Paris, they were actually deciding between Paris and south of Spain. And I strongly recommended the south of Spain, but the French government stepped in and offered them a bunch of money. And then when they decided to go to Paris, you know, Paris in January, February is pretty friggin' cold. And I said, surely you're not going to operate Disney Paris over the winter. And they said, oh, yeah, we're Disney, sure. And it went bankrupt. I don't know if you know that.
Oh, no.
Disney Paris went bankrupt, and I had to resign because I didn't agree with their decision. I thought sunny southern Spain would have been much better. You know, when you go to Florida, it's not as cold as Ottawa, right? So, so I do support the idea, if it makes sense, to have a seasonal business and to be open and shut. And you've got 150 days, you make all your money, and then you go on. So I think you did a very good job there.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, that's a funny story. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, that's the one biggest challenge we've had, is even though we're still only less than half the year, the heating has been the biggest issue from a maintenance standpoint. It's just been a bit of a nightmare some years. We've kind of constructed all of our own propane demand heating units, kind of engineered them ourselves. And it's proved to be quite difficult. So that's the one thing that's been a challenge. So I'm really happy that we're just a seasonal business and don't need to get into those colder months there.
It's starting to make sense. And you guys can get a bit of a perspective if you look at the lower left-hand side. These treetop units are like unbelievable. I mean, just incredible. Do they sway at all?
So we've worked with a couple engineers on them, and I don't know if that picture illustrates it very well, but there's a whole system of cables and turnbuckles that essentially are in X's, which really take all of the sway out of them. When I was constructing them, you would sneeze up there and then you'd feel like you're on a surfboard before those cables went in.
I can imagine.
So
Rebecca's asking, what do you do for washroom facilities and showers?
Yep. So all of the safari tents, the tree tents, they all have, the tree tents actually, they've got toilets and sinks inside of them. And then we've got kind of a shared communal area for a shower. For the safari tents, the ones that are just right on the ground there, they actually, almost all of them have soaker bathtubs inside of them. Yeah, they've got sinks, they've got toilets. All of our tents are really unique. We've kind of given them different names and personalities. So you can see kind of in that middle picture on the right-hand side, a lot of them have really unique and rustic bed frames where we've actually just constructed a bathroom divide on the back side there. So in the backhand corner, you can actually see where the bathtub's poking out.
Yeah, over here.
Exactly. And then with the smaller bell tents, what we've done is just created small common areas that are only about 100 feet away from them, with the shower. And so the park does have a whole kind of underground infrastructure of, of septic, water and electric. So there's a lot of that stuff that you don't really see when you come to the park, but
do you have strong Wi-Fi?
No, that's been the kind of our Achilles heel, but again, it's been a little bit of a blessing for our business. Yeah, even though in a world where Wi-Fi has been so important to everyone, when people come, the only place you really get it, funny enough, is at our reception tent, which is like where our bar and check-in happens. But even at that, since we're in a valley, we've had a real challenge with Wi-Fi. So we typically don't give that out to provide that to our guests. But almost every guest that comes actually in the end says that was such a beautiful aspect of staying at the park, because they truly had to disconnect from the day-to-day addiction to their phone.
And I support that. And I can see people on the chat box are supporting you as well, Chris. I take my family to Golden Lake every year. We go to Red Pine Camp, and at Red Pine Camp, if they catch you with your cell phone at the waterfront or in the dining hall, it's not approved. And so they want children to disconnect from computers and from video games and from their cell phones. And you do not walk around that. And so you spend a week or 2 weeks there and you do disconnect. I think that's a fantastic opportunity that you've created for people to do just that.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what we say is disconnect from technology and reconnect to nature. And people really seem to fall in love with that idea. Here's two pictures just of our forest chapel. This is where the weddings happen. We've got over 100 weddings booked for this upcoming season. So you could imagine, when your season only has 150 days in it, that's well over one wedding every other day. And then since weddings have been such a successful part of our business, we decided why not throw in an elopement chapel and see if we can capture some of that clientele that isn't able to rent out the entire park and able to pay for a wedding on such a large scale. This gives people with lower budgets an opportunity to come in and still get that magical forest wedding without having to put out all the money for it.
That's a amazing thing that you've done, Chris. Fantastic, and it just looks absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so here's just a couple other divisions that we started up. This last year, I kind of spearheaded a new division of our business called Spring Up Events. So essentially what we've done is we've opened, I kind of just thought, once we started maxing out, I realized that our business was no longer becoming scalable. We could only grow to so many weddings. Essentially, if we get to 150, then we can't grow anymore. So I kind of put the groundwork in this past year just to get the inventory in where we can actually go and create a rustic Whispering Springs wedding at anyone's property.
Wow.
Exactly. So they provide the land, and then we provide the tents and the experience. We only took on a few last year, but we've had a lot of interest. So that's something that we'll probably be doing more of this upcoming year. So if you want to shoot to the next slide, this is something that I think you'll probably get pretty excited about, Bruce. We have fallen in love with the idea of glamping so much that we've just tried to brainstorm and think of how we can, give more people this type of experience. It's one thing to have the park and be able to have people come. It's another to be able to bring the experience of weddings through the pop-up business. But I started to get really excited about this idea last year, and me and Bruce actually had a conversation about it. And giving people the opportunity to create their own glamping experience for their own guest. So essentially starting up a miniature glamping business. There's so many people out there with properties that are looking for ways to make additional income. And it's such a simple and easy way to get started. So what we're going to be doing this year, I'm hoping to launch this spring. We've had a couple of hiccups with the whole manufacturing side of some of the tents, just with some of the COVID delays. But I'd like to create the opportunity of giving where people can come onto our website, they can pick out a customizable glamping kit. So they can select the type of tent that they would like, the type of furniture that they would like. And then we would offer a service where we would come and we'd help set up the tent and essentially provide the startup manual so that they could immediately start renting out these tents to make a part-time income.
It's such a fantastic idea. Rebecca Perry from Alberta is on the call today, and she's been talking about urban glamping. As you know, Chris, I coach somebody in Porto in Portugal. They're doing urban backyard glamping. It's a fantastic idea. Not everybody, in fact, myself included, wants to stay in a hotel when they visit a city. I really don't like hotels, and this was long before the pandemic began. So I just think this idea is off the charts great.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. There's some benefits to it that really make it an appealing venture for most people. We've kind of seen it on a larger scale. If we were to compare ourselves to apartment buildings or spas or resorts, we've definitely been able to build our park for just a fraction of that cost. So when it comes to kind of a small glamping operation, you'd essentially be looking at a pretty low startup cost, likely in the realm of $4,000 to $12,000 for a single unit. You might need to be a little bit careful or jump through some loopholes depending on what your plans are with your township, because, yep.
Sorry, I just want to chime in here briefly, because one of my neighbors, actually, where I live, has a glamping tent in his backyard. He is an energy healer. So people can come and they can stay in his glamping tent in his backyard. He has a swimming pool and like a hot tub and some other stuff there. And because it's a home-based business, it's legal. And now you couldn't have 10 of them there, but he certainly has had one. It's been there for a couple of years now. And it really has helped him and his family, financially. And they could come and they could stay in the glamping tent in the backyard. It's like an Airbnb unit. And again, he didn't need a it was a yurt as opposed to a tent, but he did need a building permit for it. And then people can get some energy healing. So it can be exactly as you described, but it can also be if you're a registered massage therapist, if you're a physiotherapist, if you're an energy healer like he is, it can really be something fantastic. And to have access to all the work that you do, Chris, and all the knowledge that you've gained and all the product that you've developed is fantastic. It's a real opportunity. And I can see people are saying they'd like to talk to you. Chris, would you mind if could you put it, well, I'll do it because you're on your phone. Would it be okay if I put your email address in the chat box?
Yeah, feel free to put my email address in. I actually included it at the end of this PowerPoint, which I think is just a couple more slides.
Okay, good. I mean, I'll go to the next slide then.
Yeah, so this just touches on the process for that business venture. Essentially, people would just come online. They would select the kit that they'd like to buy. And then we'd have a rep show up at their house, help them get all set up. And then we just give you some of our knowledge and experience of how we've really gotten it off the ground from a marketing standpoint, creating an Instagram page and really getting it out there so that people can see that that's available. If there's one thing, I'm sure a lot of people have paid attention to this, but if there's one thing that really skyrocketed in demand in the post-COVID world, it was Airbnb rentals. There was times where I was just trying to get away in the summer, and it was near impossible to find something that was unique. And the price points were very high. So I really believe you don't need to do too much to outpace the competition. And I think that's what most people are looking for, is that little romantic getaway, or just that fresh experience instead of staying in a hotel room like you're saying, Bruce.
So is there one more slide?
Yeah, so this is just a little slide. This is I think the second last one here. This is just a little Excel spreadsheet that I came up with, just kind of showcasing, based off of a boho bell tent, which is kind of the simplest option. For a lot of people who don't have the experience, it might be a little difficult or expensive to try and put, hydro and water into the tent. But the bell tents in our park, they're just as sold out as the safari tents. And people are more than happy to go to the common area, or if you had a house with a small property in the city, maybe you could give them the option to come into your house and use a bathroom. Yep.
So one of the things that my clients do is if they have a bathroom in the house, they're adding a door to the outside. So it's now becomes a double loaded bathroom, so that the inside door can be locked, and if you have glamping guests, they have access to the bathroom, the shower, and all this other great stuff. So you don't actually have to put in another bathroom or whatever. You just have to put in a door.
Yes, I love that. I've actually seen people do that idea, and I think it's brilliant.
My first client in Portugal, that's what she did. She has 3 glamping tents in her backyard, and she has a beautiful, it has even a steam room in it, and a shower, and of course everything else. All she had to do was add an outdoor a door to the outside, and she was ready to go.
There you go.
For everybody on the ROI group, you remember the name of the group is ROI, return on investment, right? And when I see numbers like 126% ROI, 369%, 675%, I tend to really kind of doubt it. But because it's Chris and he knows what he's talking about, those are real numbers, guys. And I have actually seen it now because people I know and I coach are doing it. So with Chris's help, I suspect that these numbers are very doable for everybody on the call.
Now, the thing that's not factored into these numbers, if you were to, this isn't, this would be a simple unit without a platform, but there's ground sheets that can keep the tent protected. And this isn't including the time that, it would take just to obviously do the changeovers and clean it day to day. But just simply on the bare bones for the furniture and the tent, we've seen it with our park, these numbers are realistic. Our projection, with our park from 2001 to 2024, based off of our numbers and demand, we're looking at about a 400% increase in revenue. So it's something that's definitely possible. And it's an industry that's still very new. So the nice thing about it is there still are those loopholes, I think, in a lot of areas, making it possible. So it's kind of one of those things that you got to strike while the iron's hot and take advantage of it while you can.
That's fantastic. So here again is Chris's contact information, Chris at whisperingsprings.ca. You've got the number there. You've got the website there. You know, he's been incredibly generous to share his time and his expertise with us. I don't know what to say, Chris. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Bruce. It's been great having these conversations with you, and I wish you the very best on this next year.
Yeah, well, I can certainly use it. Darren, are you there? Can you?
I am.
Oh my God, where are you?
Keep I'll put the video on. Here we go.
There we are. There's Darren. We're going to go to you in a second. Can we all just kind of use our reactions to give Chris, tell him what you think of what he's done here? I just gave him the thumbs up. Give him the ROI group, you know, clap, clap, or thumbs up, whatever you think is Chris, a fantastic job. And I can't wait to see in the next 2 or 3 years what this company is going to become. Now, you're the co-founder. Do you have like 1 or 2 other founders with you?
Yeah, I'd say it's really the core. There's the core of us, my sister, my parents. We all kind of made an agreement that we were going to pursue this business venture and see it through from the get-go. So we'd like to think that we're all co-founders in this project.
That's beautiful. All right. So Chris, you're welcome to stay, or if you have to go, go, but we're going to switch over now to something just as important, but quite different. Okay. It's my great pleasure to introduce Darren Woodcock. He's going to talk about construction financing, and I'm going to share some slides with everybody. And we're going to talk about something that, you know, you heard what from Chris, that he really, in a way, he bootstrapped Whispering Springs. I'm sure you all caught that. You know, he was able to put what it was, a 1 kilometer, 1 mile long road, create 10 more parcels, sell those off, you know, get some money from those vacant lots that he sold, 10 of them, and that's the money that they use. So it really was bootstrap finance. You know, he didn't have to go to an A lender, spend 4 months on due diligence, only for them to say, well, this is an unproven model. The answer is no. Because I don't have to tell everybody on the call that Canadian banks only lend money to people who don't need it. So if you're a real estate entrepreneur, you need to know people like Darren. You're going to hear a lot more about Darren in just a moment. Before I turn it over to him, though, I'm going to go back to my slides, and I'm going to share just a couple of things with you, and then turn it over to Darren. Let me just blow this up a little bit. All right. So Darren is the president of Keep Capital Lending. He's been a broker for over 20 years. He's done over $500 million in fundings. He ran one of Canada's top brokerages with 5 offices. That's a lot of work. Darren, he's hosted TV and radio shows, which I didn't know until recently. And he taught the Smith maneuver. That's not the Heimlich maneuver. That's the Smith maneuver, making mortgages tax deductible. It's pretty cool. And he wanted to get off the hamster wheel of working for an A lender, a bank. And so 8 years ago, he moved to private lending. And I am certainly glad he did. He partnered with a mortgage mutual fund trust to fund mortgage files. And he built a process to protect lenders from potential defaults. And he does work with good funding files. That's kind of his thing. Now, just before I turn it over to you, Darren, I wanted to talk about this project. You've seen it before for members of the ROI group. This is a project that I'm working on with a group in Belleville. And I can tell you, working with Keep Capital and Darren has been an absolute pleasure. I'm not just saying it because Darren's on the call with me. It has been fantastic. And this is a building, you know, that I bought for very little money, $280,500. It had been horribly mistreated, and we're bringing it into the 21st century. It's a 150-year-old building. What I think is really, really important to know is that Keep Capital, and Darren will certainly go over this, is not the cheapest funding out there. And if you're thinking that your construction financing, your renovation financing is going to be, 1, 2, 3, 4%, it probably isn't. It's going to be more expensive. But for real estate entrepreneurs like us, you remember what Chris said just a moment ago, some of the ROIs that he's showing on some simple animations, like having a glamping tent in your backyard. Those ROIs are 200%, 300%, 500%, 600%. So when you're borrowing money from people like Keep Capital and from Darren, the most important thing, I think, for us as real estate entrepreneurs, whether we're big entrepreneurs or smaller scale entrepreneurs, is the speed of approval. These guys make decisions. They don't put you through 4 months of due diligence. They put you through some, and then they say yes or no, and it doesn't take 4 months. So speed of approval is very important. And then the other thing that I think is really important is flexibility. When Darren and his company say, we're going to fund on a certain day, you can count on that. And that's very important. If you're paying your trades, you want to pay them on time. That's really important because you don't want any liens on your building. And so the cost of funds to me is less important. If you're paying 9.9% instead of 4 or 5%, well, that's okay as long as there's a bridge to lower cost financing once you complete your renovation, once you complete your rebuild or your new construction. And so I'm really pleased today to be able to turn this over now in a moment here just as soon as I can to you, Darren. And I'm going to start your slides, Darren, right now.
Right. Well, thanks. My topic is not as glamorous as glamping, but it is a big crucial role and probably what a lot of you guys are looking to do. Just to add to what Bruce was saying there, what we tend to find is that people hunt, they spend a lot of time trying to get a 4 or 5% deal that extends the time frame in which they want to do their project, and they can come to us and get approved and get going a lot quicker. And that speed of financing, that speed of getting things going allows you to get into your ROI situation a lot quicker. And, if you hit the market right, it could be very beneficial for you. So Keep Capital. So who we are, I mean, we're real simple. We kind of went back to the old school where we're an equity and exit lender, meaning we're looking for your equity in your house, your project, your idea, and we want to see that you have skin in the game. We're really big on that because although we're a private lender, we want to be a partner in this. We understand that we're never going to be in it for the long haul, but as Bruce can attest to, we actually came down and physically looked at the property, tried to understand what was going on, and kind of went, yeah, we want to be a partner in that. Throughout this construction phase. We have over $90 million in funding. So my partner is the mutual fund manager. And last night, we're actually talking that we're in the next little bit, we'll be closer to 100 million plus, which is really exciting for us. That's a big number because about 6 years ago, we were only about 20 million. So we've grown a lot. And we pride ourselves in the fact that we're not in the race to the bottom game. We're in project and good deal building for our investors in the mutual fund. So we're never going to be the cheapest in the marketplace, but we want to be a good partner, as we said. Right now, we're Ontario only. We've had a lot of discussions about expanding outside of the Ontario province, but for now, we have enough fundings just in Ontario that there isn't a big need. Our rates for first mortgages typically in the 8 to 9% range for a 1-year term. Our second mortgages start at about 12, and although that's not really true, it sometimes starts a little bit lower. Everything is based off your loan to value. And you might be looking at that going 8 to 9%. Wow, that's expensive. And you're right. Yeah, it is expensive. It's not a bank mortgage. It's something, of course, we have to make a return for the investors into our mutual fund as well as helping you guys build projects to further your projects along. So we're never going to be the cheapest. We put that out there right away so that that it's kind of a value proposition, although you might think it's a weird one to put out there. What we can do, though, is if you have a lot of small time bridge capacity needs. So you've got financing. This is happening a lot, by the way, right now. In fact, while Chris was talking, I had one where the bank can't close. TD Bank can't close on Friday, and they need funding on this, and they're looking for a 7-day bridge loan, something that we can be really competitive on rate wise. People can't get an extension. You know, if you're in real estate, you understand you can't get extensions. Vendors aren't willing to do that. They need to close. They don't want to get sued. We all know that situation. So we're providing a lot of bridge loans, very short term, to get them over the hump. So when I say 8 to 9, that's typically for a 1-year term. Next slide, Bruce. So we're specialized in obviously private first and second mortgages. As I said, we go mainly Ontario. Right now, our preference is for properties 25 kilometers within 100K population. That actually takes up a lot of Southern Ontario. That doesn't mean we won't go north. We will. It just, we sometimes look at the project a little bit more closely because valuations are important to us. And then we do lots of construction files, help builders, whether it's a commercial retrofit like Bruce's deal, or I've got a build up in Tobermory where they're building up on the water, to building, knocking down and building in Toronto, downtown Toronto. So we do a lot of these little constructions, and we like to get into these construction and reno flips. So this is where, we're buying the property and they just need the capital for a 90-day period to renovate the interior. They've got everything lined up, and we finance that so that we look at an as before and as finished value, and understanding that they're going to refinance to the bank in 90 days. We like to do those ones. We're very big on short-term loans and short-term lending. Kind of it's that whole velocity of money for us, for our investors into the fund. And we like I put oddball, but in all fairness, it's unique. The unique projects, the different projects, the ones that the banks, if you've gone to a bank for financing, you hear lots of, yes, we'll do, yes, yes, yes. And in the end, they say, I'm sorry, we can't get it approved. With us, we like to look at the projects. We like to look at something that we can kind of see the end product. And if it makes sense to us, because we also develop properties, we also renovate properties, we're also landlords, so we have all that, we can understand what's going on. And if it makes sense to us, often we fund the deal. What we don't like, we're not a fan of boarding houses. We've been burnt a lot of times, mainly with the boarding houses not showing pride of ownership, for lack of a better description. We like to stay away from retirement homes and cannabis projects. No other reason other than the regulation behind it just limitates us. And with a retirement home, nobody wants to go power of sale on a retirement home. That would never look good in the media. Anyway, next slide.
Just before we change slides, a couple of questions, but a couple of comments. Do you mind if I just jump in?
Yeah, don't go right ahead.
So some of the people on the call are saying, come to Alberta, Darren, or come to Saskatchewan. So we do hope you'll go national at some point. I'm sure you're needed everywhere. The other thing I wanted to say, because I've had the experience with Keep Capital with Darren in particular, is that Darren and his people are more like my American clients, what they're experiencing with their lenders in the States. In Canada, if you go to an A lender for a business loan, a Royal Bank, a National Bank, Bank of Montreal, what have you, if you go to those people, and if they would approve it, say you needed $650,000 to renovate something, and they do finally approve it after 4 months of really hellacious due diligence, they'll only approve 400,000 of it, for example. And when they do that, we're all entrepreneurs, so we all go, oh, sure, well, I'll take the 400,000 I needed anyway, and I'll worry about the other 250 later. But Darren, I don't have to ask you this question, but what is a half-finished project worth? Not very much. In fact, it might even have a negative value. So when you go to Darren, as I did, when our Belleville project that I showed earlier, where our cost went up, Last year. You know, I don't have to tell anybody that inflation is here, that labor costs are up, and certainly material costs are up. When I went to Darren and his people, I said, I need some more money to finish this project. Darren said, well, I'm not going to approve the amount of money that you asked for. I'm going to approve more. And that's a very American style attitude. So I wanted to underline that. That is incredibly important to you guys and to me, that we have a partner, as Darren described himself, who understands these projects. Now, that was the bad news. The good news that I can tell you is that also our income on this property is up substantially. So our costs went up, but our income went up more. But even more importantly, Darren is, it will stand behind you and your project. And if you run into some cost increases that you just can't avoid, they will certainly listen to you and respond. Same thing in the States. If you ask for 650,000 in the States from an American lender, typically they'll say, no, I'm not going to give you the 650, I'm going to give you 700 or 750 because I want to make sure you finish, Bruce. And this is really important. So I just can't pump your tires enough, Darren. I really
No, but there's reasoning behind that. Again, being builders ourselves and renovators, we understand. And the worst part about it is when you've asked for 400,000 and you have a budget increase and you're at your maximum, going back to try and ask for more money. It's almost like you've admitted defeat when you're coming back and asking for more money. So often, and I say often, it's 100% of the time in any of our construction files, we always register for more than the borrower needs. And I can't think of any time that the borrowers haven't come back and needed that extra. And they might have needed it for different reasons, whether it's cost increases or they saw another project and they're coming to the end of one and they wanted the funds in order to get onto the next one, and they can utilize what we've done. But anyway, let's keep rolling on this.
Before we do, a couple more questions. Yeah, so you don't like, James is asking, you don't like boarding houses. I understand why, but what about apartments built for students?
Yeah, no problem. I'll tell you why, because we've got kids in school. So we've actually, my partner has, his two boys are off in university. So we're not afraid of student rentals. And we've done a couple. And, again, we want to make sure that somebody has a good background in managing student rentals. Having been in one as a student, I know how well they get treated. So, we want to make sure that people have an understanding of what they're getting into for that. But yeah, not a problem. Yeah, listen, I've done a lot of talks, and when I saw that Bruce asked me to speak to this, I wanted your group really to understand. We understand the concept that many groups put out there about using other people's money to further a project or to fund a project, and our concept is, yeah, we totally get that, but we want other OPM to work when both partners have risk involved in the transaction. We get asked daily, weekly, monthly for financing on projects where the builder doesn't have any capital invested in the project at all, other than 5 years ago he bought a bit of land. And that doesn't cut it for us. We want to see that people are going to complete projects. As Bruce said, a half-finished project is worth nothing to us. And we find when we take that extra step and both partners are working together, projects get finished. They typically get finished on time, and we get out of the project, and the people can transition to traditional funding a lot better. So the other thing is, once you do a deal with us, the next deal gets easier because we have a relationship, and we already know what kind of work you do, what kind of quality you do, and if you've done what you've said you're going to do, then we're your partners, and the next file gets a little easier. Doesn't mean we do less due diligence. It just means it gets easier from our capacity because we're not then going through all your background and verifying what you do. As I mentioned earlier, we've built houses, we've renovated commercial units. In fact, Bruce, you probably don't know this, but in Windsor, we have a tower in Windsor it's a commercial tower that we're renovating into a The first 4 floors are office and above are residential. So we understand costs. We've built new properties and we've repositioned that building was an office to residential. So we get it. And we can call BS when BS is being put on paper, because we all know how numbers can work for everybody. If we don't feel that your numbers are right, we're going to come back and press you on it.
So Darren, I have to tell you that what you just said about your Windsor project makes a lot of sense to me. I've been asked by cities all across North America what they're going to do with their downtowns. Here in Ottawa, you can shoot a cannon downtown and not hit anything but a pigeon. And what I've been saying is that we're going to have to do exactly what you're doing in Windsor, which is to reposition these buildings as part office and part residential, so people can have a live-work condition. The idea and I think it may be on its way out of living in a suburb, getting in your Tesla, driving an hour and a half to work, to go up 20 floors for 8 or 10 or 12 hours, coming downstairs, driving another hour, an hour and a half back home. Those days, I think, are coming to an end.
Yeah, and listen, this building's an old building in downtown Windsor that needs help, and it's been sitting unused, a lot of it unused. So it's a fun little project. Now, the other aspect from when I'm sitting and looking at the deal, especially if it comes through a broker, if it comes direct from consumers, that's different. But often when it comes through a broker, which most of my deals do, every deal is the best deal and there's no risk to me. Which of course it's never true, but what I mean by that is I want to understand what's going on a lot more. Often my pushback to brokers is, tell me the story around this. Why is this refinance happening? As mentioned, I've been doing this for 20 years. I've done enough refis in my time. I've refinanced enough people. I've been through dissecting people's divorce and asset separations. I get it, but I want to understand what's going on as to why things are happening. We on the private lending side, we're not in what's called the loan to own business. I don't want to own your home. I want to lend the money, have you reposition yourself so you can get out. What we often say to builders is, hey, listen, if it's no risk, then we're going to cross collateralize with your principal residence or some other collateral to ensure, as I mentioned earlier, you have skin in the game, and it really helps motivate to get the project completed. I had one builder, it started off with no one was giving him funding for this build because we said, well, we will, but we need your principal residence. He came back and said, no, my wife will not let that happen. And I said, but you've just told me how great this deal is and what your return is on the end. Why wouldn't she? Oh no, she doesn't want her house touched. Anyway, long story short, we ended up putting a blanket collateral on the principal residence. He completed the property. The wife was happy. Once she was shown what was happening at the end. So there's solutions all the time. Within the dynamics of what we lend, we still have to maintain our prospective protocols, our loan to value standards, and that especially comes with building and construction. Though these days it's ridiculous. We're having a hard time doing valuations because of what's happening in property values in Ontario. That is a whole nother discussion. But it really comes down to, if it fits in our box, which is a pretty big box, then we most likely will lend on it. And then it's about whether the terms meet your criteria and whether you're willing to move on from there.
Darren, a couple of questions have come up. Christian
Sure.
is asking, because Christian is a big or larger scale developer, what size deals can you fund up to? Do you have a sort of a top end?
Well, it depends on what you mean by a deal, in all fairness, because we've done some development deals. We prefer to be more on the back end of a development than the front end of a development. We're probably around 2.5 million ish now. Like, I'm saying that because we just did a 4 million and a 6 million. But those ones are really unique, and those people already have our relationship with us. So we like, I mean, when it comes to a development project, it depends. It really depends because we want to see what the exit is. Like Bruce's project is a little outside of that $2.5 million number, but we understand what's going on, and we, and plus it's a historical building which we wanted to participate in, so we can make exceptions. So really, like, I look at everything. Back to the first slide. If we're an equity and exit lender, so if there's equity and there's an exit, and we have the cash available and it makes sense to us, then we might just do that deal.
One of the things I would say, add to that, Christian, on behalf of myself and Darren perhaps as well, is that it's very unusual. There are a couple of things. Tim from Alberta has just pointed out, it's unusual that you've got an industry, as Tim says, an industry guy who's actually in the lending business, but actually in the development business as well. So that really strengthens, I think, Keep Capital. They have experience on both ends. But the other thing that is really important, Christian, here is that Keep Capital is looking at what is the value of this project when it's completed, and they understand that. And if you know what you're doing and you do the leasing right, both commercial leasing and residential leasing in a mixed-use building like ours, that value at the end is really important because that's the exit, right?
Yeah, and listen, I can tell you, I call them, I have a saying from now. I have lots of projects that pass my desk that are what we call a drawing and a dream. So they have a drawing and they have a dream, but they have no capacity to get anything done. And I see a lot of them, especially in the Golden Horseshoe, Ontario area there. It's big. These people, for whatever reason, they had land that they've held on. It's now become almost priceless, and they want to build on it, but they have no capacity to do that. It's just a dream. Somebody will lend it to them. It's just not going to be us.
So Darren, is it okay if I put in the chat box your contact information for the folks?
Yeah, not at all. Go right ahead. Yeah.
Okay.
So what I thought it would be good is to give a case example of a recently done deal. So this is a residential home acquisition, about $1 million, which seems to be almost the norm these days. They wanted to reposition, renovate, and their as complete value was probably going to be between 1.5 to 1.75. Now I give a range there because the appraisal actually said 1.5, but we figured it was actually going to come in a lot higher based on the repositioning in that particular location. So what we did is we lent 75% of the purchase price. We allowed them to close on the deal. Then, because I'm the one that's doing the commitments, I'm the one that's writing it up, I can customize things. So we built a custom commitment that allowed the renovation and construction component draws when he needed them, as opposed to at certain stages of the build. If you ever built with a bank, it's a nightmare. Nightmare. And you've got to, you might not get your third tranche of funds because you didn't put a septic tank in, but it's November or December and you can't anyway, but they won't give you your funds. So we do things a little bit different. We do it all custom. And again, we can, and we have lent more than the additional security, as long as our overall security remains below 75% of the property or properties, depending on how we set it up, their value. And that's where we can get really creative. And we can get creative because we've done deals where we have a project, doesn't matter, let's call it a residential project because those are the most common. The client is buying a property as a residential. They've got a house with nearly no mortgage on it, or a small mortgage. They got a lot of equity in their walls, but they can't tap into that equity for whatever reason. Maybe their business for self and they can't refinance all the money out of it. And they own a piece of land somewhere in Northern Ontario that's gone up in value. Well, we'll look at the assets that are held and we can build a blanket mortgage across all three assets, give them the funding that they need. That's their skin in the game now. And we can get really creative in how we fund that so that they can move on to projects. In fact, You know what? I'm gonna leave the in fact for later. I'll end with the in fact because it's just new. Anyway, let's go to the next slide. So the principal residence were 750 with 250 mortgage is exactly what I was saying. 500 grand in equity in the property. We blanketed across and we were able to advance more than the purchase price on the residential home that they were buying, so that they can acquire the property and they had money to start the renovations right away. A question I often get is, well, I don't want to put my principal residence up for a number of different reasons. We get it. But I have other properties with equity in it, rentals and whatever. Will you look at them? And the answer is absolutely. We don't need the principal. The principal just makes it nice and easy and tidy for us. And then we have a couple of partners that do rolling deals. So they've done their first project with us. It's on the market, it's listed for sale, hasn't sold yet, but they've got the next property lined up and they want to get rolling on it. We will just roll that into the collateral for the loan that we have and kind of blanket it and allow the funds to kind of roll over into the next project. So we've done a lot of those, which has been really handy, mainly for the small builder, the guy who might build 1 or 2 houses a year, or really small projects. So we like doing that because it just keeps things rolling for us. Next slide. So people say, where like, why would we come to you? But where we really can help people is when they do have these multiple properties. If you have more than, well, I guess it's probably more than 3 properties now, and you're looking to utilize the equity built up in these rental properties for your next project, good luck getting financing from the bank. In fact, the word from my peers is that a lot of that is shifting over to the commercial side.
100%.
Then good luck getting financing inside of 3 months or 4 months.
Not a chance.
Most people are going in and trying to close within 30 or 60 days. So when you have multiple properties and there's equities and those terms, you've already, you've made your deal with the bank, you got your 3% financing on the rental property and you don't want to touch that. How do you capture your equity? Yeah, you can go get a second mortgage, be happy to do that. Probably looking at the most part double digits. But if we can blanket across, then we can really build something that makes sense. Again, help for the fixer-upper projects, repositioning. We can really help. And one of the things you probably know, Bruce, I know is that if you don't have the capital lined up, it's hard to get these deals moving forward. So without the capital to go out and buy a chunk of lumber or put deposits down on kitchen materials or whatever, it's hard to move the project forward in a timely manner. And that's kind of where we've really assisted a lot of our borrowers.
It's all about speed, Darren, and you guys are really good at it. We're a little bit over time, Darren. I'm sure people don't mind. We're 5 minutes over time, but keep going. We'll get through it.
Yeah, and then again, the last point there, refinancing to a bank sometimes takes longer. Mainly now, what we're seeing, the big drag is appraisals. If you have a commercial property in Ottawa, good luck getting an appraisal inside 3 weeks. But it's actually Ontario wide. It's not just these days. So a lot of times we end up doing a lot of these little bridges or extends just because they can't get out quickly. What's the next slide? I can't remember what the next one is. Oh yeah, so this is the one up in Tobermory, I thought. So this is a really cool one that we've done. So the property on the right is a fully completed Airbnb rental. It's beautiful, about 3,500 square feet. I mean, it's you could live there and be comfortable. He rents it out with a great ROI. And then the property on the left is 7,000 feet, and he's building this one. And it's ridiculously big. But he also has a property close to the GTA, and he has some land up in the Collingwood area. So we built a blanket on the 3 properties plus the land with a build component, multi-advances, in order to help him move it forward. As the number one issue he was facing was not was not the finance part. It was getting people to Tobermory to build the house.
Yeah.
Getting an electrician up, getting an HVAC guy up. He was quoted something like $55,000 for a residential electrician on the property on the left.
Wow.
But we wrapped everything up. We registered a $5 million charge, and we're lending it to him. And I think we're doing it in that one is every 90 days. He gets a tranche in order to move him forward. So that's a nice one. I'll tell you, I love this project because the guy's he's a mechanical engineer. He's a gentleman after my own heart, and he's very visionary, and he's got this project, and it's got all these little nuances to the property that you kind of go, man, I really love that he did that. Anyway, so that's one project that we did. And by the way, I'm standing on a 500-foot deck, basically pier out in the water, taking a picture back. That's how shallow the water is there. So it's huge. This project, I love this one. So this is a small builder guy. He does one project at a time. He's bought this basically for the land value, 1.175. But I'm going to tell you, people are living in this house right now, believe it or not.
My gosh.
Yeah, it's right on Lake Erie. You can see the right there. The house has already been knocked down and built, and that's what he's going to do here. We took a blanket. His principal residence had $800,000 in equity. We did a blanket over this property, his principal residence, and he was just finishing off a new build. In fact, it was going to be listed on the market in March, so he needed about $150,000 to finish that project because he didn't finance that one properly, and acquire this one and build this one. So we basically put together a structure to allow him to close. We allowed him to get the funds to finish the ones he was building. And we've built a construction facility in for when he actually gets to knocking that down. And I put the rate, this one was 9% with a 3% fee. So again, not the cheapest, but we're going to facilitate a beautiful build on Lake Erie on that one. So that's just two examples. And that's it. I mean, I don't know. I know there might be a lot of questions. I'm happy to take any. Bruce, let me know.
This was an unbelievable presentation. You know, you said it wasn't as sexy as what Chris did with his glamping business, but it's just as important. I mean, you've got to have a great product. Chris Corcoran and Whispering Springs, they have a wonderful product. It's incredible. One of the top destinations, maybe in the world, but certainly in Ontario. So that's really exciting. But without financing, without a financing partner like Keep Capital, it's just a dream. And dreams are not, I mean, dreams are interesting, I suppose, but not really to me. You know, I've always been much more interested in something that's real. You know, when I was a young fellow, I wanted to have a real girlfriend, right? And and then as I got older, I wanted to do real projects. And people like Darren make it possible for us as entrepreneurs to do that. And I can't say enough about Keep Capital and Darren. I keep coming back to that. These people are very special. The other thing that I didn't really know until today was the depth of Darren's love for the industry, because he's in it. He loves these projects. So he's not just moving money and spreadsheets. He's actually looking at the project. Does it create a community benefit? Is it worth doing? Will it have good value at the end? Is there an exit out there for us? But the love of the industry, Darren, I don't know many lenders who in fact, I can't remember any that have expressed.
Well, it's funny, you know, I've been doing this for 20 years. And one of the things is when I was on that hamster wheel of cranking out business for the banks, I was very successful. I got bored. It was the same thing. And borrowers always asking the same questions. What's your best 5-year, blah, blah, blah. And I got to a point where I felt that there was no creativity in mortgages anymore. There's no innovation in mortgages. It's all the same thing. So when my partner and I met up and we had a discussion, I was like, wow, I can start to be innovative again, and I can start to be contributing. And again, it's contributing in different ways and helping other people put forward some of these dreams. And we've financed trailer parks and and purchases so that people can move forward with creating something like Whispering Springs there. But I mean, it's fun. Listen, mortgages aren't sexy; they are boring. I mean, I know it. So when I get a really neat project and I can see, I'm like, damn, I want to be able to drive by that house and go, hey, you know what? I had a hand in that.
I think that's so important what you said, and that you're proud of the work you do, and you're proud of the people that come to you, your clients, and you know, for me, the people I coach, a lot of them are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. I'm 70, so I still think I'm in my 30s, 40s, and 50s, and you know, they keep you young, and of course you're much younger than me, Darren, but you know, they're like your children, they're your offspring, they're, you know, it's so. But I do think you show a lot of creativity. I think you're underselling yourself on that. So could everybody do me a favor and just use the reactions and give Darren, you know, the thumbs up or the clap or whatever, and he'll know how much we appreciate it. Everything.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. I really appreciate it, guys. I like the opportunity to sit in front of you guys as entrepreneurs, as investors, as people who want to do something creative and maybe unique within the real estate market. You know, I'm here. If I can help, I can. One of the things that we also say is sometimes a quick no is almost as good as a long yes.
100%.
And if I look at a deal and I say that's not for me, then at least you're not wasting a lot of time. There are times where I can actually direct to lenders that it might work for. These days, though, it seems that the lender box is literally that. It's a box. There's not too many people that are going outside the box. And from the private lending side, everybody wants, you know, GTA or Greater Vancouver or Greater Montreal or whatever deals. I like the ones that are, you know, maybe they're in Peterborough, maybe they're, you know,
maybe they're in Belleville.
And maybe they're in Belleville. Exactly. The number 4 destation for U-Haul. I saw that.
Number two. Sorry,
number 2.
You're shortchanging us.
So, who would have thought Belleville? But
well, wait a second. We did.
I know. Clearly.
Darren, one question I would ask you, and this would be the last one because we are now 14 minutes overtime, and I hate to keep it overtime, but it was worth every minute of it. Is there a minimum size? If somebody just wants to do a $150,000 rental, can they come to you?
Yeah. I mean, my answer is there is no real minimum. And it just becomes a level of cost efficiency for us. So, you know, we've done loans as low as 40,000 for good referral partners.
Yeah.
But I like something, you know, 100,000 or above, because then the numbers don't look so bad. Right.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense to me. Well, listen, everybody, the last thing I'll say is this Saturday at noon Eastern time, if you want to join me in the Fix It course, I've got some wonderful business models, real estate business models I'll share with you. If you remember how to find it, you go to burningrocksolutions.com. burningrocksolutions.com/fixit, all one word, and you can find out more about it. If you want to join us on Saturday, I'd be really happy to have some more people with me. Again, to Darren and to Chris and to all of you, I hope 2022 is a great year. Obviously, the pandemic is still with us, but we're going to find a way through it together. And be well, everybody. I'll see you later.
Thank you, everybody.